The native woman, Yvara, leads Beaumont and Torinobu back to the tribal altar where they freed her.
Burial ground, this way,
she says, but before they can journey any further, the feeling of an oppressive darkness washes over them, and a low series of groans begin to emanate from the waters all around them. Suddenly, out of the murky swamps, rise nearly a dozen corpses, no doubt belonging to those sacrificed at this horrific place before. "It never bloody ends in this place," says Beaumont, his pistol already in hand. As the gnawing jaws and grasping hands come at him, he manages to snap off a shot. And send one of the hungry dead tumbling back into the murky filth. In a panicked fright, Beaumont's other shots go wide and miss their targets. Yvara draws her bow and nocks an arrow with practiced precision. She quickly fells 2 more of the shambling hungry dead. Then she follows up her kills, knocking another arrow. 2 more of the hungry dead are impaled through the head and drop down to rest in the marshy river bed. With the shambling horde's numbers quickly thinned, Torinobu unleashes 2 vicious slices. That lay low 2 more of the fiendish ghouls. The 2 remaining undead claw and bite at Beaumont, leaving him with a few superficial scratches. Beaumont tries to retaliate, but still panicked from the ambush, he misses his shots, his trembling hand sending the bullets wide. Yvara moves to the edge of the clearing and knocks 2 more arrows, quickly coming to Beaumont's rescue as she puts the arrows directly between the eyes of both of the hungry dead, leaving all the ambushers lifeless in the marshy waters.
"They want idol,"
she says.
"They know you have..."
"We must return the statue as quickly as possible," Torinobu says. Beaumont nods and makes his way to another edge of the clearing. "I suggest we split up and cover as much ground as possible, but don't go too far. This place is dangerous, as I'm sure you well know."
"Yes, danger. Very danger."
Torinobu nods in silent agreement and heads toward another of the jungle paths. He finds himself emerging into a clearing, a large area with the giant remains of a long dead beast protruding up out of the swamp water like a forest of bone. He realizes he is stood amongst the rib bones of the beast. Meanwhile, Beaumont stumbles into another of the feral-looking nests full of large eggs that seem to litter all of Jargono's landscape. Growing quite accustomed to these nests, he manages to avoid disturbing any of the eggs. On the other side of the clearing, Yvara moves into a boneyard lake, the area stretching out into a murky lake filled with the massive bones of long-dead creatures. Half buried in the swamp, the corpse of a decaying alien traveller lies slumped against a tree. There is something clutched in its hands. Yvara gets lucky and finds a pistol in the dead man's hand, the dead man's iron. Torinobu is not so lucky, as moving amongst the thick bones, he disturbs a nest of bog bats that take to the sky in screeching flight and swoop down on the posse, ambushing them with their vicious claws and teeth. Beaumont, struggling to fend off the sudden ambush of bog bats, fails to notice the lumbering swamp slasher emerge at the far end of the nest, its mandibles clicking as swamp slime runs off its chitinous plates. Beaumont manages to shove away the bog bats and retreats back towards the tribal altar. His pistol barks twice. And 2 of the spindly bat-like creatures fall from the sky, crashing onto the riverbank in dead heaps. Torinobu, his blade well practiced against these creatures, finds them little more than a nuisance. As he slashes apart the 2 bog bats attacking him with little effort, though their piercing shrieks still cause tumult in his soul. while Yvara, who encounters these creatures on a daily basis, knows their weak spots and easily dispatches them with 2 swift arrows. She spins round and fires a 3rd arrow in the direction of the swamp slasher, but misses. The lumbering swamp slasher charges forward, smashing its way through the nest and getting close to Beaumont. However, the gambler, luckily, moved far enough away to allow himself time for another shot at the beast. His bullets punch through its chitinous plating, but not enough to lay it low, and the beast keeps moving. Torinobu runs to his partner's aid and finishes the creature off with one quick slash of his sword. "Let's carry on, shall we? But perhaps don't get too far from each other," says Beaumont. He moves through the nest and heads toward another clearing that brings him out into a swampy trail. Meanwhile, Yvara and Torinobu regroup and prepare to make their way through the ribs of the ancient dead beast and see what lies beyond. However, they stop short when they hear Beaumont calling. "Over here! I've found a dying native!" he shouts. In the swampy trail, slumped against a tree, a dying Jargono native gasps for breath, several serpentine arrows protruding from his chest. As Beaumont approaches, he raises his blade as a warning to stay back. Recognizing the tribal markings of the native, as though similar to Yvara, he speaks her name. "Yvara! Yvara, friend!" he says, pointing to himself. The native lowers his sword and collapses backwards against the tree. "Ambush! Ambush! Burial site!" he says, pointing off towards the nest from where Beaumont came. Then the native gives out his last breath and slumps over in the filth. Beaumont tips his hat to him and turns back towards the nest. He creeps past the eggs and finds himself moving towards another clearing. Recognizing several grave markers up ahead, he realizes he must have found the burial ground that they were looking for. The entire area is filled with stone-carved totems, hideous faces of monsters and serpents. Heeding his call, Torinobu and Yvara make their way back past the primitive altar and towards the burial ground. As Beaumont enters the burial ground, he sees piles of bodies heaped up near the grave markers, and from the murky depths arise more of the hungry dead. "It can never be bloody simple, can it?" he says, exasperated, and draws his gun once again. He is lining up his first shot when he hears an ominous growl from behind him. "Oh, Lady Luck, you are not singing my name today." Turning round to see the giant, hulking form of a night terror standing over him, its eyes glowing red. The beast, however, is slow and clumsy, and before it can even take a swipe at Beaumont, he unloads his gun at the creature. Then uses his ace in the hole, the cheetah's holdout pistol, to deliver one final shot through its skull. The hulking beast has a shocked look on its face, as if surprised it was bested by such a small creature. Then it topples over and smashes into the water in an undignified fashion. As Yvara and Torinobu rush through the nest to catch up to Beaumont, they arrive in time to see more corpses rising from the burial ground, clawing and dragging themselves free of the piles of corpses. "Must find grave," Yvara says. "Find grave. Dead. Stop." The shambling horde begins stumbling through the swampy waters towards the trio. Beaumont answers with a quick shot from his pistol that leaves the closest of the shambling ghouls dead again. Torinobu rushes to Beaumont's side and quickly cuts down another of the shambling horde, while Yvara catches up and puts down a third with a rain of arrows. The relentless horde keep coming, spilling forth from the piles of bodies. More rise up, only to be cut down by blades and bullets and arrows. Beaumont dispatches 2 more of the dead as they get close to him. Then Torinobu rushes forward, getting close to one of the grave markers of the burial site. And cuts down another of the undead horde. Yvara joins Beaumont and hands him the dead man's iron she found earlier, unfamiliar with how to use such a weapon. She prefers her bow and arrow and unleashes another piercing shot. That lays low yet another of the undead horde. Beaumont rushes forward to help Torinobu search the grave markers for where to return the cursed idol, but as yet more of the corpses rise up from the piles surrounding the place. He pauses, draws a stick of dynamite from his satchel and lights the fuse. He prays for fortune to favour him and hurls the stick. The fuse fizzes violently as it lands directly amongst the corpse piles and the walking dead. The blast shakes the trees and blows the corpses to pieces. The piles of dead are nearly obliterated by the blast, but there is still some sign of movement. The disturbance draws the attention of one of the giant swamp slugs. The giant mollusk bursts out of the water, ambushing Beaumont from behind. Its thick, acidic mucus scorching his clothes. He manages to avoid the brunt of its attack, but gets the feeling he'll be in the market for a new jacket when he returns to Brimstone County. Torinobu, desperate to return the statue and end this cursed bad luck, finally finds the right grave, an impression in the shape of the cursed idol carved into the stone.
Quickly, Beaumont-san, give me the idol. I will return it to its place of rest,
he shouts. Beaumont hurls the idol to him, and Torinobu puts it into place. Meanwhile, Yvara fires arrow after arrow into the thick mollusk's body. The tough swamp slug barely seems to notice, and turns on her, raking at her with its giant teeth. She cries out as it leaves a nasty cut down her leg. Then, amidst the blasted chunks of meat from the corpse piles, rise 2 more of the shambling dead. Before they can prove any more trouble, Torinobu charges forward, his blades gleaming silver in the shadows of the jungle canopy. He cuts down one of the hungry dead, its rotten body falling away in 2 wet, ragged lumps. Then, in a flurry of lightning slashes, he cuts apart what's left of the corpse piles, leaving nothing but severed limbs to sink back into the marshland. Yvara struggles with the swamp slug, and endurance proving to weather the attacks from her arrows. The creature responds by disgorging its acidic mucus all over her and Beaumont. The burning sensation sends both of them reeling, dunking themselves into the filthy swamp water in the hopes that it'll clean it off. Beaumont continues to fire bullet after bullet into the thick hide of the swamp slug, hoping that he and Yvara can take it down. But it just seems to absorb the projectiles as if they were nothing. Torinobu sees their peril and rushes to their aid. His razor-sharp swords flash. And the swamp slug's thick hide parts in their wake, leaving the overgrown monstrosity to collapse into the murky waters, shriveling up. Yvara knocks one last arrow, and fires it at the last hungry dead shambling towards them. The slow-moving corpse is hit square in the head, falls down, letting out one last groan as it slips beneath the surface. Bloody hell, I thought that was never going to end. What is that bloody noise?
Prepare yourself, it may be another beast.
Suddenly, from the jungle foliage, leaps another beast, but one Beaumont and Torinobu are all too familiar with. Is that a bloody dog? The unmistakable shape of a hound, quite healthy and wearing a collar, runs up to them, barking happily at Beaumont and Torinobu. It jumps up on its hind legs and begins scrabbling at them with its paws, looking for attention. I dare say he's domesticated. What the bloody hell is he doing in a place like this?
Perhaps he got lost with Hedgebrook's expedition.
Or some other expedition, one more unlucky perhaps.
You make new friend.
Yvara says, smiling. Yes, I suppose we have. We'll have to name him. Swampy, I suppose, is an apt name for him.
Hey, Swampy inu desu.
With their new four-legged companion, Beaumont and Torinobu finally manage to rid themselves of the accursed ancient statue, and the moment they do, they feel as if a great burden has been lifted from them. It feels as if the jungle around them lightens and the air grows cooler. They have not felt such relief in what feels like forever, and good luck seems to return almost immediately, as Yvara steps forward, saying to them,
I show you way home.
You know where there's a void gate that can get us out of here?
Magic door, that way.
She says, pointing off into the jungle.
But must be careful. Serpent men war. Kill each other. Kill human.
She makes a chopping motion across her neck.
Kill all.
She says in a grave voice.
I go with you.
And with no other way home, Beaumont and Torinobu prepare themselves to cross a tribal war zone to reach the gate back to Brimstone County. With the statue returned and the natives freed, Beaumont and Torinobu prepare for the final leg of their journey to return home to Brimstone. Yvara, the young native woman they freed from the clutches of the vile Serpentmen tribe, promises to lead them to a magic doorway that leads back to their own world.
This way. Must be careful. This land. Diamond scale. Yellow tribe. Serpent men. They fight. Kill. War.
As if to punctuate her point, the sound of arrows flying through the air resonates through the jungle. Come on, let's get a move on. I don't want to be here one moment longer than we have to. Beaumont moves through the burial ground, exploring deeper into the jungle. He moves through the thickets and groves, and comes across a clearing where a massive webbed spider hole funnels into the undergrowth. Shriveled bodies of webbed, half-eaten animals litter the area. Another one of these bloody spiders, he says, but having encountered one previously, he is ready for the bog spider as it lashes out of its hole. He grabs the beast by the legs as it jumps at him and hurls it off into the depths of the swamp. Ha! Take that, you blighter! Meanwhile, Torinobu heads toward another edge of the burial ground, hoping to find a path leading to one of the void gates, or at the very least to avoid any of the serpent men. Cautious of the warring factions, he takes it slow. While Yvara, more comfortable in her native land, branching off from the burial ground, she arrives in a murky clearing, but soon realizes this is not the way to the magic door. The posse's new four-legged friend, Swampy, the dog, pads over to Torinobu's side. Looking in the direction the samurai is heading, the dog continues on and finds the jungle continues through a copse of trees branching off in two different directions. As Beaumont approaches the spider hole, large man-eater worms coil up out of the water around him, grinding their razor-sharp jaw rings. A small swarm of the horrible little beasts rise up out of the swamp, attacking Yvara and Torinobu as well. However, all three are quick-witted and manage to jump aside, avoiding the vicious jaw rings. And in moments, each of them quickly dispatch the man-eater worms attacking them. Beaumont, no sooner has he killed the man-eater worm, hears the buzzing of flies. A swarm of vicious insects descend from the floral canopy to feed, carnivorous brain flies emerging from the depths of the jungle. The gambler thinks fast and sets light to one of his bandages, whipping it around his head, the smoke and fire sending them retreating back into the jungle. It's just not my bloody day, he says, exasperated. While Beaumont deals with the swarm of bugs, Yvara looks carefully into the depths of the murky clearing, the unmistakable shapes of swamp slashers visible in the treeline. She calls for help, and both Beaumont and Torinobu begin making their way back towards her. Yvara backs away, firing her bow and arrow at the closest swamp slasher. The arrows proving to have little effect against the chitinous hide of the hulking beast. Swampy comes running, barking and yapping at the foul-smelling creature. The swamp slashers launch their attack, the first running up to Yvara and swinging its great claws at her. She barely avoids its death blow, getting only a small cut across her forearm. The second slasher comes barreling through the jungle and runs up to Beaumont, swinging at him with its claws, its mandibles clicking. Beaumont manages to step aside, just in time to avoid being sliced in two. He backs away from the creature, heading back towards the spider hole. He opens fire. Doubling down on the shot and praying for fortune's favour, he fires a second bullet. That finds a weak point in the creature's armour and smashes straight through its chitinous hide, pulverising its internal organs. The swamp slasher gurgles and collapses. Seeing his compatriots have the battle in hand, Torinobu turns to continue exploring, hoping to find the quickest way through this war zone as possible. Yvara opens fire. With her bow and arrow. At such close range, the arrows pierce through the joints in the chitinous armour of the swamp slasher and do it serious damage. The creature's movements become slow and sluggish, but it is still alive. Until Swampy leaps up and buries its muzzle in the throat of the creature, tearing out its throat. The horrid beast gurgles as bubbling blood spills down its front. Then it collapses.
Good dog,
says Yvara. With the swamp slashers dead, Beaumont continues to explore, looking for the void gate. He soon finds himself in a deep part of the swamp, filled with spine glow vines. In the deep dark parts of the swamp, bioluminescent plants give off an eerie glow. Some grow quite large and have even been known to devour animals that stray too close. Torinobu, meanwhile, continues to explore through the copse of trees he found earlier. He comes across another murky clearing, seemingly empty. Yvara pats Swampy's head and heads off towards the spider hole, planning to help Beaumont search. The loyal dog races off ahead of her, running right by the spider hole without a care in the world, and comes across a tribal fountain, set amidst some ruins of the past. Broken stonework and architecture protrude from the swampy waters here, covered in vines and weathered by time. What ancient civilization might have built this? Swampy certainly doesn't know. All he is concerned for is the cooling waters of the tribal fountain amidst the humidity and heat of the swamp. The heat and humidity of the jungle swamps grows nearly unbearable on Beaumont as well as he pushes through the deep swamp and the murky undergrowth. But he's grateful, as he won't have to put up with it too much longer. Hearing Swampy barking, Beaumont turns to see that the dog has found, set in the ancient stone architecture, a shimmering blue portal of light. Though much further out into the swamp, and feeling unnerved by the dark whispering voices in his head that seem to come in every time he is away from the protective light of Beaumont's lantern, Torinobu also hears the barking of Swampy and turns back to investigate. Passing a crumbling stone statue with a large open mouth full of fangs, he feels a snap as his foot stretches and breaks a tripwire vine. A volley of darts erupt from the gaping maw. Distracted by the evil, otherworldly voices, Torinobu fails to avoid one of the darts and it sinks into the meat of his leg. The tingling sensation tells him it is coated with some vile poison, and he only hopes it is not lethal. As he prepares to make his way to where he can hear the dog barking, he hears a screeching from within the depths of the jungle. Suddenly, a swarm of bogbats burst out from the undergrowth. The fluttering creatures screech as they attack, ambushing Beaumont, Yvara, and Torinobu, as well as Swampy. Two of the bogbats flank Beaumont, screeching in his face, their ear-splitting screams causing him to lose his mind. He quickly retaliates with 2 quick shots from his pistol. The loud bang of its report quickly quietens the bogbats as their slimy bodies are punctured and sent hurling off back into the undergrowth. Torinobu, meanwhile, ambushed by the creatures, finds himself clawed and scratched by them, the poison no doubt slowing his defences. But with a quick swipe of his sword, he retaliates, cutting them both down with ease. Yvara, who is quite used to hunting bogbats, quickly dispatches the one that was attacking her. Then turns to help Beaumont, the flying creature visible in the distance. She nocks an arrow and fires with perfect precision, piercing the creature straight through its body and sending it tumbling into the swamp. One of the bogbats continues to harass Swampy. The last remaining one flies out of the dog's reach as it yaps and barks in pain from the high-pitched screams of the bat. Try as he might, Swampy just can't jump high enough to bite the creature and put an end to its horrible noise. Seeing the dog in distress, Beaumont turns, takes careful aim, and fires a single shot. That punches the bogbat straight through the head. It collapses in a heap, twitching, and Swampy mauls it for good measure. "There you go, boy. Get your chops into that," says Beaumont. With the creatures dead, Yvara and Beaumont head towards the shimmering gate. Swampy, realizing it has finally found a way home, jumps through the portal, seeming to know where it leads. As Torinobu catches up, Beaumont and Yvara wait by the portal.
"You go home, now."
"You could come travel with us, you know," says Beaumont. "You will find our world far safer than this one." She shakes her head.
"No, must protect tribe. Many serpent men. Danger."
"Yes, I understand." With the warring factions of the serpent men behind them, and indeed never even encountering them as the beasts were too busy slaughtering each other, Beaumont and Torinobu bid goodbye to Yvara, who heads back into the jungle, hoping to make it safe back to her tribe, before any of the serpent men spot her. "Well, time to go home, old chap," says Beaumont.
Yes, we must return to Brimstone. We still have the man in black to find and bring to justice.
Beaumont nods, and the 2 men step through the shimmering portal of blue light.